told me that this time the argument was based on politics.
I think the reason for it, frankly, is more to do with internal Ukraine politics. The presidential election is due to be held on January 17th. The incumbent President Yushchenko is trailing very badly in the polls. The opinion polls basically suggest that he's got no chance. His ace, as it were, is probably to try and reignite some dispute with Russia to refocus on, if you like, Russia as an unreliable partner, and that's all we need these days. So, frankly, I think this attempt, as it were, to try and have a dispute over energy again is probably more to do with internal Ukraine politics than, say, any real threat of a major disruption.
And it all comes on the same day that Russia opened a new oil export terminal in Asia, in the Far East.
Yes.
Is that at all related to this?
Well, I would think that's probably, that gives rise to the timing. The basis of this dispute is more to do with, if you like, trying to drag Russia into another dispute on energy, and I'm sure those who probably have that in mind chose today specifically because Russia is inaugurating this major pipeline to Asia, and there already has been some suggestion that Russia may try to refocus its energy exports towards Asia and away from Europe. And in fact, what we've heard consistently from the Russian government is that they want to achieve a better balance, and of course they particularly want to try and reduce their vulnerability to the congested Bosphorus channel, which takes most of Russia's import oil right now. So they need
Does that bother you?
and there's always crazy because I think Western countries, but frankly I think the timing is not coincident. I'm not sure the timing.
What's the temperature now?
Minus 8. Typically chose to try and enforce that point that possibly Russia is looking to shift its energy focus to the east, which certainly I don't believe that is the case. But for political reasons, they probably do.
That's Chris Weaver. Security worries and the airlines caused a dip in shares on Wall Street, but the losses were limited by figures showing that consumers have been spending more than expected. With his view of the day's trading, here's Carrie Leahy at Decision Economics.
Obviously, in a light holiday-related session, the equity markets were up modestly today. Really, the story was the fact that retailers, after a horrible 2008, seem to have had an okay 2009, with some estimates of retail sales being up as much as 3.5% compared to December last year. It appears that Christmas was saved at the last minute, and there was some bargain shopping and last-minute shopping that got retailers' positions much better than last year.
Quite a drop for the airlines, especially Delta, down more than 5%.
Yes, the airlines are having difficulties at the moment. Travel is down, oil-related expenses are high, and they have additional complications from additional security measures that may bring the airline as well.
Carrie Leahy, looking at the numbers, the Dow Jones was up 0.3% at 10,547. The BBC index of 20 leading companies in Europe and America is at $94.2. Education is usually seen as one of the best routes out of poverty, but in the African country of Malawi, the education system simply doesn't have enough teachers to cope, as the BBC's Niels Bryce recently discovered in the capital Lilongwe.
Malawi is the capital. What? Lilongwe is the capital of Malawi.
Politicians' favourite antidote to poverty, but what happens when a country's education system is overwhelmed by the sheer number of children? I've been finding out. In a tiny classroom with blank walls and about 100 6-year-old children are singing their hearts out. Most of the early years learning is in the local language, Chichewa. But here at Chilamba School, they start English at 6, and in the next door classroom, these 7-year-olds have mastered a few phrases.
How are you today?
And I must say their English is a
understand
lot
that?
better than my Chichewa. But there's no escaping the fact that learning in classes of 100 or more is difficult. In this school, teacher numbers have improved a bit, but were a huge problem for head teacher Roylex Jason until recently.
I had only 2 teachers here.
You used to have only 2 teachers for 600 pupils.
Yes.
And is there a problem with hunger? Do some of the children come to school hungry?
Oh yes, because they walk a long distance. We don't, provide them with the porridge as other schools do. We don't have anything to offer them.
At break time, some of the children run around, but many have exhausting journeys to school. I talked to Linda, who's 9 years old. Where do you come from? What is the name of your village?
Pinji village.
So how far is it to Pinji village?
2 hours.
It takes you 2 hours to walk to school. Do you walk by yourself or with friends or a brother?
I work with my friends.
Heavy! Touch your head. Ear! Touch your ear. Aye!
For all its problems, Chilamba School seems a cheerful place, but the underlying problems in Malawian education run very deep. Many of the teachers are not well qualified themselves, according to Lexon Ndolama, who heads an educational campaign group.
We are in a vicious circle where the education system, the school system, has crumbled. Since 1994, when free primary school education was introduced in the country, and the government was forced to recruit teachers en masse, quite a number of people who didn't have credible certificates entered the teaching profession.
Even the education minister, George Chaponda, acknowledges there's much to be done.
The teacher-pupil ratio, it could be 1 to 100, sometimes even 120, sometimes cases even 180.
What would you like to get primary school class sizes down to?
We would say ideally it should be 1 teacher to 40. Perhaps we think by 2010, 2012, we may move from 1 teacher to 60. That is the most ideal.
And education is not the top priority for the Malawian government. Its biggest commitment is to reducing the number of people who go hungry. But the danger is that inadequate education will hold Malawi back in its fight against poverty. At Chilamba School, giving the correct answer to a question is rewarded by an intricate pattern of clapping. But when the question being asked is, do you spend a poor country's limited government budget on reducing hunger or improving education, the answer isn't easy.
BBC's Niels Blythe reporting there. Don't forget, the latest edition of World Business News is always available on our website, plus there's a downloadable MP3 or podcast. Just type without any gaps bbcworldservice.com/business.
There's a snowplow.
Let's join the BBC for a story of our times. History programme Witness, and in the second of 2 programmes marking 30 years since the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan, Lucy Williamson brings together witnesses from both sides of the conflict.
It's December 1979, Bagram Air Base, Afghanistan. And in the shadow of the cold mountains of the Hindu Kush, a plane carrying Soviet soldiers has just landed. Among them, 23-year-old Rustam Kursunkulov.
Мы сначала прилетели в Баграм.
We flew to Bagram dressed in the uniform of soldiers of the Afghan army. Everything was very unfamiliar, very strange. To go to another country to protect its leader was not the usual kind of thing we did. We were special forces. Our job was to gather in